All right, admissions, that's a big one right here. So after you've done all your research, right, you figured out, okay, I want to study, let's say, in that region of the United States. This is a campus size I'm happy with. They do have my graduate program, which is great. I took a look at all of the other factors, from career opportunities to internships. I can afford the tuition. There are scholarships that I might be able to apply to. Great, I can afford studying at that institution. All right, what else do you have to keep in mind? Admissions, big one. So for graduate programs in the US, each graduate program usually is able to set their own admission requirements. And these admission requirements are different across the board. Even for a specific university, let's say a university offers 100 different graduate programs, for each one of those, the admission requirements might be different. So very important here, first things first, please do your homework. Very, very important. Do your own research, do your homework. The admission requirements usually take a look at, the GPA that you have. GPA, that's the grade average that you have in your bachelor degree, in your 4-year bachelor degree. Ideally, for most institutions, it should be a 4-year bachelor degree. So make sure that you meet the minimum GPA requirements. That can be a 3.0 GPA. The American grading scale goes all the way up to 4.0. So just make sure that you keep that in mind. Some institutions may ask you to go to an outside provider to get your transcripts, to your bachelor transcripts, university transcripts, and your degree evaluated and validated. Some universities may do that in-house, and their international admissions office may do that. So again, that's one of these things you would want to research. If an outside evaluation is necessary, there are plenty of companies in the US who do that, but it will cost you also a little bit of money. So please keep that in mind. English proficiency will be usually required for international students for most universities in the US. So make sure that you meet those English proficiency requirements. Usually that's a test score that can be TOEFL, IELTS score, sometimes even Duolingo that is being accepted, and a variety of other exams as well, Cambridge. So just make sure to ask the International Admissions Office of the university you chose. And then, of course, another big one, standardized test scores. So we have the GRE and the GMAT. Those are the most frequent standardized entry exams for graduate programs that you may have to provide. So these test scores, make sure whether or not they are required for the graduate program that you chose in the first place, and then see what these scores are. And then, of course, make sure that you are taking the GRE or a GMAT. For most business or MBA programs in the US, the GMAT will most likely be required. And for some selected graduate programs, you may run into GRE requirements. So please be mindful here. These are standardized tests. I'm sure you're probably familiar with them, but these are standardized tests that do take a lot of work, a lot of study, and to successfully pass them. Additional departmental requirements can also be required. So if you take a look at, again, the application, make sure that you really collect all the documents that you need, right? Sometimes you will have to write a statement of purpose. Why would you like to study this specific graduate program? What is your story? Please let us know, right? Very important. That might be required for, graduate programs that you apply to. Also, sometimes they may ask you for a resume. Sometimes they may ask you for a letter of recommendation or two from some of your past university professors. And then sometimes there might be other requirements. For example, if you want to study a graduate program in psychology and your undergraduate degree is not in psychology, they might not be possible because you're missing the framework here, the base knowledge. So just be mindful here that you keep track of all of these, additional requirements or application requirements that you might run into. Deadlines, also very important for international students. Please make sure that you stick to the international student application deadlines. Again, you can research that usually on each university's website, and you can always reach out to the International Admissions Office. How do you submit your application? That's another good point, because higher education institutions in the US might have either their own application system, depending on where you are in the US and what type of school you apply to, or they might use a common one is the Common App that a lot of higher education institutions use here in the US. So please just make sure that you know where to submit your application, how much the application fee is, what it costs, and make sure, again, to have all of your documents ready when you submit your application. And sometimes there might even be a secondary application required to the department, to the graduate department directly. So please be mindful here. Make sure, again, to do your research. I already spoke about the transcript evaluations. And then, oh yeah, another important one here is the admission rate before I forget. So some of you may have, maybe have that goal in mind. Hey, I want to study at an Ivy League school, for example, in the US, right? Just keep in mind that if you go for very competitive schools like that and very well-known schools like that all of us have heard of, the admission rates for those schools are not very high. Sometimes they're very, very low because it's extremely competitive to get in. Now, I don't want to deter you from giving it a try if you want to, of course, right? If you meet the admission requirements, if you did your research and you think you have a good shot, go for it. But please be mindful here that you want to also research a little bit about what's your admission rate for international students for this and that graduate program, so you have an overall idea of what your chances are to get admitted. So please just be mindful here, just to also make sure that you have a better understanding of what you can expect as a result of your application. How long does an admission decision take? That's another good point that you should ask and be aware of. So if you contact, let's say, the International Admissions Office, make sure you ask that question. So again, you set your own expectations. So all right, I submitted my application. Do I hear back in 2 weeks from now, or do I hear back in 5 months from now, or 3 months from now? Big difference, right? So you want to make sure that or how long it on average would take for you to receive an admissions decision of whether or not yes or no you are admitted to the program, because it will help you also with your own arrangements, right? Travel arrangements and everything else that you have to take care of when you travel and study abroad. All right, next slide, please. Yes, you're welcome here. That's another one that I picked that I wanted to quickly, obviously, let you know. So some of you may have seen this. This was a social media campaign as well that a lot of higher education institutions in the US participated in the past. We just want to make sure that you know that you are welcome as an international student here in the US. And for you as an international student, you also want to make sure that you feel that inclusivity at your respective school on your campus. So make sure that when you take a look at a campus again, that it's a good fit for you, that it's not only a good academic fit, but also a good social fit. And again, in order to do so, take a look at the facilities, campus life, academic calendars, student calendars if they're available, just so you know what's going on, also where the institution is located, of course. So all of that plays in here. I just wanted to put it out there that that's also, of course, once you get there, that you are happy and that you do not get homesick and want to go back after, let's say, a semester or so. Okay.